3, 2, 1. Happy New Year!
Woo!
From our friends over at Manscaped. The ball has officially been dropped, but that doesn't mean you have to drop the ball on your balls in 2023. Whether you had a New Year's kiss or not, the leaders in below-the-waist grooming have you covered for your much-needed resolution of bringing sexy back. Join the 7 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with our exclusive offer. Go to manscaped.com and use our code BALLCHECK for 20% off and free shipping. Let us have a toast for a new year and a new you with no pubes.
Balls are important to any trainer, which is why it's a new year, new balls, with the global leaders in below-the-waist grooming. This year, take your package to the next level with their Performance Package 4.0 and other premium wet goods. That's right, wet goods. This includes their ultra-premium body wash, 2-in-1 shampoo, and body deodorant.
Inside the Performance Package 4.0, you'll find the signature Lawnmower 4.0. The advanced skin-safe technology reduces cuts and nicks on your delicate parts. I can attest to this, Adam.
As can I.
I could get acrobatic with it.
Upside down,
Yes.
backwards, flip side, right side.
It also comes equipped with a 4000K LED spotlight that will shine a light brighter than Bill's Lighthouse. That's a deep cut, Adam.
That is pretty
Bill's
deep.
Lighthouse, yeah. So get 20% off and free shipping with the code BALLCHECK at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com when you use the code BALLCHECK, BALLCHECK. Time to feel sexy and free this 2023 with Manscaped. What's going on, Pokemon Go trainers? Welcome to episode 40 of the Lured Up Podcast Creator Series, bringing together your favorite content creators to talk about their work, process, and the game that brings it all together, Pokemon Go. Lured Up is part of the Pokemon Professor Network. Today is Tuesday, December 20th, 2022. I'm your host, Ken Pescator, and this week I am very excited to be joined by Marty from PokeMiners. Marty, what is happening? How are you, man?
Good, you? I listened to you at 1.5 times, so this is weird for me.
You're one of those?
Oh,
Dude,
yeah. All my podcasts are super speed.
I used to do that too. When I was listening to 3-hour shows and stuff like that, I was like, the only way I could get through this is at 1.5. Yeah, and it's bizarre when you hear things at normal speed. You're like, why are you talking so slow? Oh my God. That's so
It's so disoriented. Yeah, it's cool listening to the intro in normal speed.
Yeah, right. But welcome back, man. It's good to have you. I'm excited to dig into some stuff, and I know that you're definitely a highly requested guest from the PokeMiners because we have a significant crossover of audience where a lot of the hardcore side of the players and the social sphere really rely on what you do and turn to you for information and news pretty much on a daily basis. So very excited to have you and can't wait to dig in. So why don't we just start right off the top? Tell us a little bit about yourself. Let us know who you are and what your connection to the Pokemon franchise is and how you got started with Pokemon Go.
Yeah, so I'm Marty. I'm one of the two co-creators of PokeMiners. I started it with another guy named Macateller. He kind of is AFK for a couple of years. To be honest, I hope he's okay. I haven't heard from him. I've reached out a few times and I hope he's okay, but no one else from that time. But I do it with a few other people, Lou and GM2K and BC. And I have been a day one player for Pokemon Go. Haven't missed a streak yet.
Nice.
Once I miss a streak, I feel like my care for the streaks will go down. But right now, I'm like, no, I can't miss a streak. And I still play every day. Some days it may be 3 minutes just open gifts at the end of the day. But haven't dropped off on that. So I'm still very proud of that. But yeah, I downloaded day one, didn't really know what it was. And I think last time I was on the show, talked about how I started, I played Gold and Silver. That was basically it as a kid. And then I didn't do anything with Pokemon. I paid attention to look, this new Pokemon and this new games, but I never was really into it until Pokemon Go. And then since Pokemon Go, I've gotten back in and I went back and I played all the games except for Black and White. Those are the only ones that I'm missing because it wasn't on the virtual. There's something about not being on the virtual console or something, so I couldn't go back for that. But I was able to play the rest of them and just finish Scarlet and Violet, I guess 2 weeks ago, now. But yeah, that's I'm not gonna lie, I'm not the biggest hardcore Pokemon fan. I'm more of a Digimon guy myself.
Oh
But
my
I still
God.
enjoy Pokemon.
Adam's probably dancing in New Hampshire right now. He's like, yes, that's right.
I've been listening to the Digimon movie soundtrack on repeat for the last week.
That's Adam too, man. That's like so Adam is going to Texas for the Digimon World Championships. He's literally,
that's sick.
yeah, like he's in, man. Like he's hardcore with it. It's so funny. I bust his chops. I'm like, dude, you're like a traitor. You can't do this. Like I'm like, I want to sabotage him. I'm gonna like pop his tires or something like that. It's so funny. But all right, so even if you play a couple minutes of the day, and obviously you create in the space, so this game becomes very encompassing of our lives, right? So it becomes part of our culture, part of our daily routine, and with that, the game is very diverse. So there's a million different ways that we could all interact with the game and play, and there's so many different diverse styles of playing. If you had all the time in the world to play, if you had a playground of Pokestops and gyms to play in, how would you play the game? What's your favorite way to play? And conversely, what's your least favorite way to play?
Because of Pokemon Go, I got into electric scooters like a big old nerd.
Nice.
And not just like the kid, ones or like the bird ones, like really big, bulky, powerful, like you could hurt yourself scooters on. And honestly, that's like I always tell this to people and then they make fun of me, but it's the best way to play Pokemon Go because you can get between gyms really easily. You can go through parks to get to stops really easily. I love it. So basically any way that I can scoot around is basically what I prefer. So like just came back from Spotlight Hour, scooting around, doing that. So basically like raids, quests, rockets, that kind of stuff. The stuff that I can't do on my scooter or the stuff that you sit at home for 2 hours a day tapping on a screen like PvP and GBL, I did start when it came out. I used to do self tournaments and I used to do GBL and I did like 5 matches last season.
Yeah, believe it or not, I did a lot of more PvP last season than I probably have in the last 2 or 3 seasons because of the battle pass thing, because of the ticket. And it was just like I have that, slight compulsion to just see numbers go up, right? It just makes me, I was the kid that like got the calculator and just did like +1, 1, 1, 1, just to see the numbers go up. So it's like that motivated me to do to get 500 wins last season. And then like, as soon as I hit 500, I was just like, all right, I think I'm good. I think
I'm done.
Yeah. And it's like, and I was like, wow, the ticket really fed that compulsion. And without it, I was just like, yeah, I think I've plateaued. But, that's really cool. And I was just in the city this past weekend for Community Day. And, when you're train hopping, you see some of these people with scooters on the train. And they're these like insane, huge machines that are like, you could see that these things have some significant heft. And like the torque that these things put out is absolutely insane. And I've seen them like go from a dead stop to, probably close to 10,000 RPM or something like that and just go. And it is really impressive. So that, yeah, hell yeah. I've never really experienced that outside of like, a little crazy night in Seattle for GoFest, grad jumping on a scooter, trying to like find my way back to the Airbnb or whatever. But that's really cool. No, I can see how that, do you have like a mount for your phone on the scooter?
Oh yeah, of course.
Oh, that's so awesome. That's so great. That's a lot of fun. That's really cool.
It's hard to quick catch on it, but I recently started doing like the 2-handed quick catch, and I still can't do it. And when I'm going at like 10 kilometers an hour, like really slow in the scooter, I can kind of do it, but I it's too complicated. So I'm going to just let my plus do it.
Nice. And before we dig into the PokeMiners, the nuts and bolts and things like that, I kind of think a good place to start would be to discuss what a datamine is and kind of how that can be explained from a couple different perspectives, because I think at its surface level, it could be a pretty simple concept, but at its, most technical level, it could be way above my pay grade. And the interesting thing about having you on the show, and the interesting thing about being lured up and being partnered with Niantic and all that stuff is like, this is like a no-no, right? So
I know.
So it's
don't
like,
tell Niantic I'm here.
I know, right? They're like going to come through your windows right now or something like that. Like, what? But so I'll start with the blanket disclaimer that data mining hard stop breaks the terms of service. Like, this is against the terms of service, and anything that is found in a data mine is essentially unofficial because this hasn't been published. This hasn't been, kind of brought to the public eye by Niantic. So things that you find in the data mine, they could be wrong. They could be honeypots. They could be, all this different stuff that doesn't make it to the public eye and essentially is not endorsed by Niantic. They could put stuff in there for shits and giggles, and if you report on it, you report on it. Now, the fun thing about PokeMiners is that you guys, if someone like farts, you're going to note it, and put a release out for it. But
we do.
But I always like to just put that disclaimer out saying like, hey, look, Lured Up isn't the ones doing the data mine here. So I'm not breaking the terms of service. And talking about data mines is not against the terms of service. So that's what we're going to do here. So let's start at the top. What is a data mine? If I'm in second grade and I walk up to you and say, hey, Marty, what's a data mine? How would you explain it to someone that has no idea what this is?
Yeah, so the very simplest level, there's two main things different games, data mining means different things to different games. And I'll focus on the Pokemon Go side of things. There's two main things in data mining. There's APKs, which are your app. Don't need to remember what that acronym is, but it's the app. It's the thing you install on your phone. It's opening that up and it's taking a look inside and it's saying, oh, what's in here? There's code, there's assets, there's fun things, there's less fun things. It's opening up that box and taking a look at what that is. And then the other side of it is remote updates. And those are all the things that Niantic pushes to the game, or in other games, they have their own versions of it, but Niantic would push updates. So like moves, stats, Pokemon, settings when they enable different features, assets, new stickers, new Pokemon, of course, new skyboxes, things like that. And so those are kind of the two main things that get broken down. And the most important thing that people care about in the remote side of it is the game master, which is basically a big settings file telling the game what to do.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense. And it seems like the remote stuff is what like that hungry trainer, right? That trainer that's hungry for information, that's hungry for the quote unquote what's next is looking for. So if there's a trainer out there who's starving for information and starving for updates, how do APKs kind of play to, or the remote updates play to what they're trying to accomplish by seeking this information out?
APKs are really good at telling, and of course, everything's unofficial. Everything we put out can change or never be used. There's lots of things. Root Maker, for example, is something that we've been reporting on for 3.5 years, and where the crap is Root Maker?
Exactly, right.
APK is good at like showing features coming sometimes very early or never at all. And the people that are really looking for like the nuts and bolts and the mechanics, that's where a lot of the stuff with the Game Master comes in. So a good example of that is like the Buddy Heart system. It's not described in the game how that system works, how many points you get for each interaction, all that. But in the Game Master, it describes, if you spin a stop, you get 3 points, or I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. Like it describes all that stuff. So if you're looking to min-max your Buddy Hearts with your buddy and how to like swap it out, like there's information in the Game Master specifically to tell you how to do that. And what's more important is things like moves, because things like energy for PvP, stat buffs and debuffs, so like how many stages it lowers or increases, or for not as many people care about it, but it's still an important factor, is the speed in PvE. How fast does a charge move actually take to complete? None of that information is made publicly in the game at all, either in-game or resources from Niantic. So it's stuff like that without information from the Game Master, some of it would just be impossible to figure out. Some of it would be some very poor people like Matt from PV Poke, like recording his screen and timing it and like,
right.
1,
oh my
2,
God.
3. So it's possible to get this information elsewhere, but it would be annoying, and I wouldn't want to do it.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, and I really think that that data is hyper important to like a very small but very emotional and very passionate community, and I think that that's really where the nuts and bolts of the following for PokeMiners lives, is these people that are so connected to the game that they don't have a level of satisfaction with just seeing things at the surface level. They want to know what's the speed. They want to know, hey, how many turns does this move take? And those are the people that will drive the hardcore side of the game, which ultimately trickles down to the casual player, the non-daily player, things like that. So it is important to provide them with information. And, it's just a unique scenario, especially here, is because we don't get any of that information at the surface level. We don't see it from Niantic. So it's definitely a desired thing, that the only way to get this information, again, like Matt recording a screen, counting off, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi kind of thing, or you could just, pull a spreadsheet and be like, oh, okay, it's this long. You know what I mean? So I totally get that. Now, what about like someone that has an exceptional amount of technical prowess and, potentially has, works in software? How do you explain what a data mine is to someone that really would understand kind of what you do?
We don't go into too many specifics of like Niantic specifically, because what we do could be used for as much as we break the terms of service, there's a lot bigger evils out there like cheaters, mappers, and we've always said we don't support that stuff. We don't want to make any unfair advantages. Any of that stuff we don't support. So the nuts and bolts, we don't go into too much detail, because normally the people asking us for that information are the people trying to do bad things to the game. What I can say is that it's a Unity game. If you've heard of Unity, it's a game engine. It's what runs the game. It runs a bunch of games now. Unreal is the other really big one right now. Unity and Unreal are always going at each other, but it's Unity. Uses a lot of Unity systems to build and bundle and package things. And then there's a bunch of like Niantic specific stuff. As the game gets older, there's more Lightship added into the game. So their shared AR platform and SDK, that's more and more baked into Pokemon Go. And then for the really technical people that care, protocol buffers is the network communication. Don't expect anyone to know or care what that is, but if you know what that is, that's the network system that it uses to talk back and forth.
Nice. All right, cool. So now I think we have an understanding laid out of what a data mine is, and I appreciate that, because I think that's half the challenge, right? Because the majority of people know, like, yeah, this is bad. This is you'll be on the naughty list if you do this, right? But they it's almost like, peeking through your fingers when you're watching like, Jackass or something like that when someone's getting hurt. It's like, but I want to know. I want to see what happens. Well, let's start with you personally and your team. Like, what's the history of PokeMiners and kind of what's the motivation that at the root level made you decide, like, we want to peek behind the curtain? Like, what got you there?
It was TSR stopping to do it. So you can take it. There's lots of conspiracy theories. People said they went. I have no inside information, but I noticed that TSR and GoHub both stopped doing teardowns around the same time, and they had different reasons. And it was also around the same time they signed an NDA. So I don't want to be too conspiracy theorist, but I mean, it's not hard to put those together. And then, so they, and even, so when they stopped doing it, I actually reached out. So, and part of this is that TSR was like, yeah, we want to spend more time with our family and all that stuff, and completely valid, reasons and all that stuff. So I reached out to TSR. I'm like, oh, like, I'm interested in doing it. And they're like, I don't remember what they said, but they gave me some like very clearly made up answer of like why they can't, they're like, oh, well, only Dropes knows how to do it, so no one else can do it. I was like, okay, whatever. Like, do you mind if I just do it on my own? They're like, yeah, that's fine. You just can't do it for us. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Perfect. Right. Exactly.
So yeah, I was doing it just on my own for a while. And then Macateller was the other guy that I started with. He posted one as well. And I was like, oh, awesome. Someone else is doing it. We should team up and do awesome things together. And so we started PokeMiners. We brought in a few more people over that. Other people on the team that are really important are Bad Coffee, GM2K, Lou. They all kind of came. To be honest, I don't remember the order in which they came. I thought they joined a lot earlier than they did, but every time I asked them, they're like, no, we weren't there at the very beginning. I don't remember. At some point they joined. And then unfortunately, Mac has been kind of AFK for about 2 years now or so. So I hope he's okay if he's listening to this anywhere. I don't think he plays. I haven't gotten a gift from him in the game in a while, so I hope he's okay. But I think he just dropped off from the game. And then we've had other people come and go over time. We used to, at our peak, we were 10 people. Right now we're about 5. Most people just stop playing the game, to be honest. And if they stop playing, and it's the same thing, if I stop playing the game, I probably don't care to data mine it, to be honest.
Sure. Right. That makes a lot of sense. Like, why worry about the ingredients if you're not gonna eat it at the end, right? It's like
yeah, exactly.
Like,
yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. And I guess you mentioned Game Master. I just love the name of that, by the way. Just for whatever reason, it just reminds me of, like, I don't know, like the Gatekeeper, or like, yeah, something like Ghostbusters or something. I'm in the studio right now. I'm looking at a proton pack. I'm looking at a photon blaster. I'm like, yeah, this is like Ghostbusters. It's like the Game Master. But what the hell is a Game Master, and why is it important to what you do, and how does that kind of translate to the fun bits of information that you're able to share from it?
At the simplest level, it's a really, really, really long text file, and it describes all the settings, the mechanics, moves. The really important thing is that the game master is per user, and so different users can have different game masters. It's not just one for everyone. So people, a good example of that is the Furfru, if I'm pronouncing that right, the Furfru forms. Depending on where you boot the game up, the game master changes to change the forms that you can actively change into.
Interesting. I would have never known that. That's a great tidbit. So that's built into the actual game master. I would not have known that.
So also things like for Season of Mischief last year, if you did the Hoopa research, if you did that research, you've unlocked Hoopa form change in your game master. But if you start the game up today, you haven't unlocked that, so you can't form change Hoopa. So things like that. It's per user. Most of 99% of the game master is the same for everyone, like moves. It would be a disaster if people had different moves for different users. But most of it's the same. There is another set that we don't really monitor, but it's called global settings, and it's exactly what it sounds. It's a set of settings that is like the game master, but it's for everyone. Everyone gets the exact same thing at the same time. And so you can't really roll it out. But it's kind of like without the game master, the game doesn't know pretty much anything. It doesn't know what Pokemon are. It doesn't know what moves are. It doesn't know what its features are. It doesn't know what it can do. And the idea is that instead of having to boot the game up and re-download that every time, it stores it. So it's a decoded, that protocol buffer thing that no one's going to remember. It's that it generates that. It stores it as a file. The file is just garbage. If you just open the file up, it looks like nothing. It's just a mess. And so you have to have the tools needed to basically decode that file and make sense of it, because on its own it's kind of useless. And so it boots up with the game, and it gets updated every time you boot the game up. So you don't have to re-download it every time. Say they add a new Pokemon, it just downloads that new Pokemon, it pops into the game master, and it boots up. And you don't have to re-download that whole thing again, because it's massive now. It's very big.
That's wild. Yeah, I remember, I don't know if it was maybe, it's wild to think how long you guys have been doing this, but how long this game's been around. But I remember that there was some significant changes to the way the Game Master was handled maybe 3 years ago or something like that. There was some changes where, I don't know, I remember hearing you guys say that you kind of had to change your process to kind of adapt to what was happening in the Game Master.
Yeah, so that was what they call in the code, and what we call is Game Master version 2. Pretty much anything they add that is new, they just tack a version 2 onto it. I haven't seen a version 3, come to think of it. I'm excited for the first version 3. But yeah, basically the big difference is that was the updates, how it updated. So before, every time you booted the game up, it had to download that entire thing again. You know, if just one Pokemon changed, the rest of the Game Master had to come down with it and had to download everything about friends and gifts and PvP. And, and so you can imagine that's a really big ask for, especially on mobile data, because the thing can be like 5 or 6 megabits sometimes. And so the big change to V2 was what's called Delta updates, which is the ability to download just parts of it and just insert it into the update. So if just one Pokemon gets updated, it just adds that in. And so that broke our ability, because the way that the whole way it was packaged up was completely changed. So it took us a little while to figure that out. That was also in our early days. I feel like if that happened now, we could probably figure it out in like a day, but we didn't know what we were doing when we started. So we've learned, it's funny, it took us 8 months to figure out how to get assets to start. And they've changed the asset system. There's 5 different asset systems in the game, and they change it about once every 5 to 6 months. They'll make a change to one of them, and it takes us at best a day, at worst a week to get caught up. And it was just, it's once you know it, right? It's when there's no documentation for this anywhere.
Right.
Poking holes at it until it does what you want.
So I remember about that time is when I learned about the word obfuscation, and that was kind of, a new word in my vocabulary. And I've probably interacted with that word a lot over the past couple of years. So what is that all about, and how does that make your life better or worse?
It definitely doesn't make my life better. So if you want to protect any program, this is a very simple level, but there's 2 basic ways to do it. You can decrypt it, So it's an encryption key, and you can't access it without the encryption or with the decryption keys. The downside to that is that to access it, even for the game to boot up, it would have to decrypt it and then unpackage it. And so that's slow. Like it could literally add seconds to each boot. So people generally don't do that because it's too much of a performance hit. It's way more secure than obfuscation, which is another way to do it. What obfuscation does is it doesn't encrypt anything, but it scrambles the names of things. So for example, if we see something that's like send postcard, right, in the code, it'll just become like garbage. Like it's just a mess of characters. And so if you were just to like open up the APK now and like look at it, the whole thing, well, sorry, not all of it, a large chunk of it, the parts that the bad people use are obfuscated. The parts that the bad people don't use are not obfuscated. So I think that can tell you why different parts are obfuscated. But like all their light ship stuff, for example, that's in the APK, none of that's obfuscated. All like the GUI stuff, so any menu in the game, none of that's obfuscated. Pokemon themselves aren't obfuscated. So things like that aren't obfuscated. And so basically it makes it, unless you have, like in our case, we have 3.5 years of like redoing their code in our code. So we can trace it. We built it took a month to build, and I never want to do this again, but we built a obfuscation rebuilder that takes their APK and it builds the APK back into something that we can use. When I first wrote it, it took 8 hours to run. For every APK that came out, it was an 8-hour process. I was able to luckily get that down to an hour, so I didn't want to blow my brains out. But that makes it a little bit easier to manage because it can start to find things. Now, anything new to the game, it's impossible. You can't figure it out like technically. What is important is that if we continue to monitor the game like we do, we monitor like every 2 minutes, we get an update for what the game's doing. And as they make features live, what may be pushed as some garbage name, and then we see postcard, like Vivillon goes live. It's like, okay, well that garbage name we now know is Vivillon. So
got it.
You can start to piece things together. And so basically obfuscation sucks. I hate it so much.
Well, I can imagine. I see why. But no, I remember reading like your reports and you would always talk about that, like of these are the challenges. And, you know, I'll try to put myself in Niantic's shoes, and it's like, yeah, this is like exceptionally sensitive data. This is exceptionally privileged data. It makes sense why they would do it, and it's actually really interesting to find out that there's significant parts of the game that are not obfuscated because, I mean, obviously, like with Lightship and it being, you know, kind of this open free platform and all that makes sense. But with like the menus even and some of the interface stuff like that, that's really interesting to hear. But I can see why, because like nefariously you can't do much with a menu, right? Like, so you're not gonna, you know, take over the world or steal the moon or anything like that because you understand how a button works, you know. But that's very interesting though. It's really fascinating to learn about this stuff.
It's also interesting to note that no other Niantic game is obfuscated. Pikmin, Harry Potter, Transformers, none of them. Peridot, none of them are obfuscated. It's just Pokemon Go.
Yeah, nice. That tells you something about this quality community around us.
Tells you that's where the bad actors are. And it's also, what is also interesting is if it's stuff like the things that are most interesting for us to report on are, to be honest, things like GUIs, like things like, oh, there's a menu for when you pin a postcard, things like that, right? We don't care as much about the network side of things, and you know, and so it's interesting that like the obfuscation, it doesn't like. It slows us down and I hate it, but it doesn't really stop us from doing anything. It's just like it slows down the bad people. It doesn't stop them either because they have ways around things. Obviously things are still going, but yeah, it's interesting. You know, and I think really, and I guess we'll get to this in a bit. Like the idea is that like it slows you down enough to the point that you don't want to do it anymore, which is partly where we've hit.
Yeah, and that's, you know, we'll definitely get to that in a second because I think that's kind of what was the catalyst for me reaching out to get you back in, because I think that it raised a lot of eyebrows and a lot of people were concerned because, you know, you're the vessel for a lot of the information that people really rely on. But we'll definitely get to that in a minute. We'll get to that. Now I want to talk about the interesting stuff that I could, you know, it's such a weird thing to talk about because like people have busted my chops for years saying that, you know, I was a crony and I was a bootlicker and all this hilarious stuff. And I love it. I play along with it. It's always a lot of fun, you know, because it's like I have this exceptionally optimistic approach to everything in the game. And why wouldn't I, right? It's like, I love this game. I love this community. And can it be hard sometimes? Sure. And when you work with people, you're going to defend them and you're going to look out for them. And you're going to, especially when you start to learn that the human side of things. And I think that that's like a big deal when it comes to why I value this data and why Niantic covets this data, is because they work so hard on it. And like I said at the top of the show, this is breaking the TOS. How does that kind of impact what you've done? And has that ever kind of created any, like, even if it's like a lapse or a momentary like moment in your head of what's happening, or is that kind of not thought about? Because I know that like mines are definitely different than a leak, right? You're not finding a piece of paper on the copier, you know what I mean, and publishing it out. But in a certain way, you're kind of pulling that curtain back. So help me understand how the approach is when it comes to the morality of breaking the TOS and kind of the difference between like a leak and a data mine. Like, what's really that kind of paradigm when it comes to that whole kind of school of thought?
Yeah. So on the terms of service side, it's obviously something, and we talked about before, we're very obviously respectful. We know that we're breaking the terms of service. We know, and first of all, we never do anything on our actual accounts. I'm friends with people on my friends list on my actual real account for Niantic, and they know exactly who I am, and they could do bad things if they wanted, and knock on wood, they've never done that.
Don't do anything, Niantic. Don't do it.
Don't do it. But yeah, I invite them to raids and stuff, and it's cool seeing Niantic employees on your friends list. Sometimes it's just fun. It's just so we're aware of that, and I think the terms of services in general are there to protect the company in the case that they want to do something, right? We didn't say you do something bad, and they're like, well, we didn't tell you could do this, and now you're specifically doing it. So if we want to take action, we're going to take action. People break terms of service for things all the time. I broke the terms of service by accident on GitHub because I made a second account, and I got yelled at by GitHub saying you can't make a second account on GitHub. Everything has to be one account, and like stupid little things like that. It's like, oh, okay, whoops, I broke the terms of service, And so it's there if they want to take action, they now have justification to take action. And so first and foremost, we don't do anything on our main account. We separate it. All of our stuff is on separate stuff, and that's where it kind of. I honestly, I don't know where that comes. Is that like, is it the terms of service on the person? Is the terms of service on the account? Because the account is clean. The person is not, right?
That's an interesting one, because there was an update to the terms maybe 6 months ago that said that even intangible behavior like bullying or spreading shit online could impact your actual game and your account. So that's an interesting one. That's a.
I wonder if that was around the time. Was it Go Fest Germany that someone stole an egg? Do you remember that?
It wasn't around the egg time. That apology tweet was so funny. I'm sorry, I stole the egg.
Yeah. So I wonder if that. I mean, again, I have no idea, but like that would be around that time if that's when they updated it. Because I didn't know that. Last time I checked the terms of service was a few months ago, and I probably skipped that part, to be honest.
Yeah, there was something in there that said like, even like online behaviors could have an impact on your actual account, which I thought was really weird, because that's like, all right, well, so it's like, I love talking shit, but if I talk some heavy shit, that means I could get banned in the game. Like, it's pretty wild. And I understand, like, you kind of have to do the scare umbrella a little bit, to put it out there so people aren't just like completely brutal to each other. But I did think that kind of intangibility connection was pretty interesting.
I also wonder if that's not. I have no knowledge of it. I wonder if that's legally enforceable too, right? Like, the common, like, is an IP address a person? And it's been proven multiple times in court. It's not.
It's not, right?
Just because an IP address did something bad doesn't mean the person did something bad, and so they get, So I have no idea, but that is very interesting. And to answer your question about like the leaks and the mines part is, it's exactly what you said. Is that like, it's kind of weird. Is that a lot of people call us leakers. I don't consider ourselves leakers, and because what I consider a leak is someone that's under NDA, or someone tells someone something in confidence, and they're like, "Don't tell anyone," and they're like, "Okay," and then they go and tell someone.
Sure.
right? A leak is someone nefariously or purposely trying to get information out that they know they shouldn't be getting out. Where what we do, in my opinion, obviously people can disagree, is we're reporting on public information. It may be tricky to get that public information, but it's not information that we stole from someone. And then, like, it's not like we have Niantic employees telling us, oh yeah, you should tell them about this move, right? It's stuff that they put on not just my phone, but on everyone's phone. It's on your phone right now too. We're just reporting on it. So, that's still against the terms of service, of course. But I don't consider that a leak. But from a marketing perspective, people who don't want, new assets and things like that revealed before, they're ready to announce it, it can be annoying when they need to push things to the game. And Niantic has gotten pretty good in recent, I would say like 2 years, I guess. Recent. they've definitely since we started about pushing things just when they need them. So for example, Jesse and James, they were pushed like literally like 20 minutes before they went live. By the time we downloaded them and looked at them, they was live, right? So like there's things that they do like that. If they actually want to hide something, they know, Gimme Ghoul was a good example, right? Is that they pushed that. They could have pushed that a little bit later in our opinion, but they pushed that with only like 6 hours, 8 hours, something like that before it went live. And so stuff like that, like they could have pushed that a week and a half. Like they've pushed New Year's costumes, right? For New Year, right? And they obviously it's like, oh, who cares? You can report on the New Year's costumes. But like for, big TPC tie-ins probably is what my guess is, where they're a little bit more tight on, when they push things. Because they know, they obviously know that, we're going to report on it.
That, and it's an interesting approach too, saying like, yeah, this data is on my phone. Does that make it mine? And I came from the console gaming arena, and a lot of people that I was involved with were involved in like modding hardware, and that was like a big no-no from Microsoft or from Sony or from Nintendo. And it's like, well, wait a second. I bought this device. I own this device. It's in my house. I own every piece of hardware that's here. What do you mean I can't modify this piece of hardware? I own it. And there was always this really funky gray area. And I remember, there was a different time in my life where I did a lot of work directly with the team at Xbox Live, and I was doing tournaments for like Gears of War and Rainbow Six and things like that. And I was giving out consoles as prizes, and some of them were just physically modded. And they were like, you can't do that. It does not have an official case. And it's like, well, it's literally the case, man. Like it's literally just the plastic. And they're like, yeah, but that breaks our terms of service of modding the piece of hardware. It doesn't matter if you're modding it with a piece of electronic hardware or physical hardware. It was all tied in, at least at that time. So it is very interesting to say, yeah, this data is in my possession. I have this data here on my phone. It's there. I'm just reporting on it. I just have special glasses that let me see it, that you can't see it. And I'm just telling you the story that I'm able to see with my, special PokeMiners glasses. I think that's really interesting. And that's a really a good way to kind of describe the difference between the leak and a data mine. And that does make a lot of sense when you think of a leak of being, it does have a nefarious kind of undertone to it where it's like, yeah, this is getting out. And this is kind of, don't tell anyone. It's a backdoor deal, and you walk by and you slip them, you shake someone's hand, and that's when you hand them the $20 bill. You know what I mean? It's like that's really an interesting way to think about it. But I guess that kind of leads us to the current state of affairs and the current state of the game, and really what the catalyst was to bring you back on to have this conversation, which was the note that you had put out about things changing in the game and your perspective of your personal relationship with the game itself and what was influencing the changes of those feelings. And I think that something I'll do here on the last episode of Lured Up Proper, I kind of read from this, and I was like, oh snap, they're going in a little bit, and I'll summarize it here, and I'll reread it so I can get everyone caught up. And this is coming from PokeMiners.com. And it was just, I guess the title was just a note from PokeMiners. And I'll read it right from here. This will probably be interesting to some, because it kind of, when you think of data mines, you think of ones and zeros, and you don't necessarily attach emotion or passion to it. You just think of info, right? So when you connect the dots between that data and real life emotion and feelings and sentiment. It's just like, it's this weird humanization of the machine, of the computer, you know? So it was really cool for me to read, because I was able to take a step back and be like, oh yeah, they're just a bunch of dudes that are doing this. They're not robots, you know, these are real people. So it was very interesting. So I'll just read 2 paragraphs here. I'll get through it, and then we can kind of unpack it a little bit. So it says, hey everyone, today we want to take some time to announce a few changes to the future of PokeMiners and explain our thoughts. First and foremost, we aren't going anywhere. Yeah, nice move on that clickbaity ass title you had there, because I was just like, no! You got me.
Did you see our podcast title?
I did, yeah. So funny.
Yeah, we like to have fun with shit like that.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. But you say, we're not going anywhere. Our Discord, website, Twitter will continue to operate as normal, but we need to cut back. You head the next section with recent events. You say, as you probably know, if you're in our Discord or listen to our podcast, we have grown increasingly more upset with the game and Niantic in recent weeks and months. The admins and partners of PokeMiners, Lou, GM2K, and Marty had become more and more estranged from the game. Interesting language, I thought there. Over the last month in particular, due to Niantic's handling of the game we used to love so much. And I was like, oh my God, don't tell me. This is starting to break my heart. And then I kept reading. Said, recent decisions, actions, and responses to the community have made it clear to us that Niantic simply does not care about the quality of the game or its community. Fucking zing. I was like, oh shit, they're going in. Every event launches with mistakes and or confusion, and they take the game down for 40 minutes without any mention, apology, explanation, and new features are mismanaged and priorities are questionable at best. The changes to shop boxes without explanation, the quick removal of the 1480 box when it was added back for a few minutes, the launch of Elite Raids in their broken state. I still have not had a successful Elite Raid, by the way. They then reported use of them with no fixes, the multiple Zorua and Go Plus issues. My Go Plus will not connect. The confusing Ultra Beast marketing campaign, and most recently the Hone Tour Global apparent nerf have all been on top of our minds, with each killing a lot of our motivation and love for this game. Okay, hard stop. Let's unpack. Because there's a lot here, and it's pretty powerful, because a lot of people, when, you know, I have a very tight-knit community in our Patreon and in our Discord, and when we shared this and started discussing it, it was kind of a thing where, like, even the champions of this game, even like the advocates of this game, the game that are like really the crutch bearers of the platform and everything that Niantic does, were kind of like, yeah, okay, yep, okay, yep, there was like, it was like a weird thing, because everyone kind of has these feelings and sentiment growing kind of inside of them. So when you wrote this statement, and what was kind of the mindset going through, and what really triggered this? Was there any one thing, or was this kind of a slow burn over the last couple months, like based on some of the things that you had mentioned in that, you know, in that opening?
Yeah. So quickly, it was interesting you say that too, because I was not expecting, I was just explaining our reasoning, and I did see a lot of comments like, oh, that, like, you've like hit the nail on the head. That's exactly how I feel. I haven't been able to figure out how to articulate it. Like, seeing it written like that, like, yes, I saw. And so hearing that too is interesting, because that wasn't our intention or my intention. And got a lot of feedback about that, which is interesting. And so, yeah, the it's been growing over the last couple months. Like, Lou has barely played the game, and especially like for the last like 3 or 4 months, especially with Scarlet Violet coming out, he's basically like, he's barely played. GM is just basically doing events. Like, he'll do, you know, like he'll get like 3 shinies for community day and then be done. And I thought I was cutting back, and then I hear their stories, and I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I've definitely cut back. Like, I used to go like at least an hour to 2 hours every day. And some days, like I mentioned, like I play like 3 minutes a day now and stuff. And so it's, and at this point I was playing, yeah, like legit, it was like 3 weeks in a row of like basically playing 3 minutes at a time. Like, wow. I was still never stopped playing, because that FOMO and that addiction, right?
Sure. Yep.
But and I haven't like missed an event, like, okay, like a new Pokemon came out, caught it. And it's actually, it's good that I think there was like a week and a half, I guess, between us putting this out and this recording, because things have been a little bit smoother, I think, in the last week or so. There hasn't been nearly as many the events. I'm not jiving with. I'm still not playing a whole much, but I'm playing a little bit more. it was all these things, and then the thing specifically that put me over the edge is that the APKs, it's a huge amount of work to do all this, especially with obfuscation and going through it. For example, like the combat log, when they added logging to PvP and then to raids, that thing is a massive obfuscated spaghetti code mess. Like it took like 4 hours to go through it, and then a few months later they changed it all and rewrote it all, and it took hours and hours and hours to go through it. And at the end of the day, all people care about is they added logging. They don't care about what's actually in this thing. They don't care about the log. Maybe there's a few people like, oh, I'm interested to know it, but like 90% of people, they don't care. And so like that started to get to me. And the APKs, like an APK comes out, and basically I started to really resent the fact that, like I have other projects that I'm trying to start up and other things that I'm trying to do. And obviously with family and stuff like that too. But like there's like other projects that I'm working on. And whenever like an APK comes out, I know that, okay, the next 3 to 4 days of my life, gone. Like I have to do this now. And when you don't play the game as much because you're upset with some of the decisions that Niantic is making and the issues. Like I remember the weekend for the Go Plus, I was so fucking pissed. Yeah. I just didn't play the game the entire week.
You weren't alone. You weren't alone there. A lot of people were just like, no, this is it. I'm done.
Yeah. I was, that was, for me personally, so this list is a mix of all of our, different things affect us. Me personally, it was the Elite Raids, it was Zora, and then it was the Ultra Beast marketing campaign, because I just could not understand what the logic was behind announce and having this massive, I woke up one morning to 16 Twitter notifications. One was PokeBattler, one was Cerebi, the other 14 were Ultra Beasts are coming, Ultra Beasts are coming, Ultra Beasts are coming. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this needs to stop. So that was right after Zora too. So I wasn't feeling good to begin with. So yeah. So the thing that specifically put me over the edge was, I don't know what this is, and I doubt anyone cares, but there's something called Saturday Transaction in the new APK. I have no idea what it is, but I spent an hour and a half on this, deobfuscating it, trying to get as much information. It's something where you get a reward for doing something. I have no idea what it is. And it was at that point that I didn't have a full breakdown, but I definitely stopped and I was like, I do not want to do this. I was in the middle of working on my other project before this APK dropped. This is now day 3 into doing this APK when I wanted to be doing the other thing that I was in the middle of doing for this other thing. And I was just like, I can't do this anymore. This is not fun. No one's going to care about this. I don't want to completely step back because there's still important information that, people need. And, I don't want to completely, screw over the following and things like that. And, it's fun. The community is fun. And so, but I'm like, I can't keep doing this. So that was, and that's when I started asking the other admins and stuff. I'm like, what, I can't do this anymore. What do you, because, and this is and also the bulk of the work falls on me for a lot of this, because the other guys tried to help. And I remember GM did it for one update and he's like, this is awful. Seeing what you do, I don't want to do this. And so no one else wants to do it because it sucks. The guy, Bad Coffee is the one that really helped get us started with this stuff. And as soon as obfuscation hit, he was like, I'm not doing this. This is too much work. I'm like, I'll do it. And it's too much. So it's, and what I was saying to the other guys, this is exactly, I think I said earlier too, is that this is exactly what obfuscation is for. It's to wear people down to the point that they don't want to do it anymore. So this is case in point, obfuscation worked.
So do you think there's that when that your note went live, there was engineers high-fiving and shit? Do you think that that is happening? They're we got him. It was a direct missile strike. We did it. We hit him. We hit him where it hurt. He was I told you that decision 4 years ago. I told you it would pay off.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know that they've obviously they've left us things in the code before, thank yous and things like that, right? So we know, and because we report on things and then they fix it, before it goes live for anyone, moves being wrong or stats. Something that happens a lot is that a new mega will be added and it'll have just the completely wrong stats. And so we report on it and then within 10, 20 minutes they fix it, right? And so, and these are things that aren't live in the game. No one could possibly know that, so I think there's the terms of service breaking, but I think the engineers, at least I would hope, and based on what I've seen, is that I think they appreciate the QA work that we do, that we help, right? Because we can confirm what they push, and we can confirm they add something, If it's a mistake, they can fix it. If it's not working, we can kind of give some insight into why it's not working. From like an end client perspective, which I as a developer, that would be useful if I had someone like validating everything that I was pushing. I was like, oh, okay, it worked. Good. Thanks.
Yeah. You have the engineers appreciating that. And then there's like, the product team that's like, yeah, buddy, whatever gets you to sleep at night, whatever, whatever, dude.
Yeah, I'm sure marketing hates us.
Exactly, yeah.
But marketing and engineering always hate each other. That's just how it works, right?
They're definitely on opposite sides of the building. They do not share a cafeteria. That's funny. So what does it mean? You said you're cutting back, you're stepping back. I mean, I know a lot of people threw up their hands like, oh no, like this is, where are we going to get our information? And then, kind of backpedaling into the announcement or your note, you say, yeah, well, things will still operate. So what does it mean for the community member of your content, of the people that consume what you do? How will this impact them, and what will they see differently when it comes to how you guys put out data?
Anyone that's been following us over the last week has probably noticed this. We started this with the last APK as well, before we made this announcement to kind of try it out. Is basically the goal, the ultimate goal is to still get the same information out at least as much time as it was before, if not faster, because basically we're cutting corners on the things that take time. So for example, new moves get pushed. There was 3 moves this week, that normally we would do a graphic and we would, do, I mean, we're not fancy graphic artists at all. Like our graphics do not look good, but it looks better than just a text update on Twitter.
Right.
And so, and it's really interesting seeing us just putting those out as text updates and things that I know it's kind of shooting ourselves in the foot, but for my own mental health, I think this is important, is that like putting things out as a graphic, putting that same information out as a graphic would have 3 times to 4 times, the engagement than putting it out as a text update. And it's interesting really seeing that major shift in the last week of just our engagement numbers just being lower for information that previously, unless there's some other shift in that, but I don't think there's anything major in the last week that would have triggered that. So it's really interesting seeing that. And we knew that before too, is that like, people don't read our reports nearly as much as they look at a graphic. And so it's stuff like that. So it's moves come out. We just post what they are. We'll let people do graphics, we'll let people like PvPoke sim it and, all that stuff. So they still get the information they need, but it takes it for us. It goes from 20 minutes to make this graphic to 3 to 4 minutes to post it, which really adds up over time. Things like APKs, there's a lot in APKs that no one cares about, like Unity updates and all this crap, right? And we know, like when we would report on it, no one would, like if we do the real-time reports on our Discord and you can like see the reactions that people, and like we report on like a Unity mesh update and like fucking nothing. Yeah. So it's like, okay, no one cares about this. Like, and we were reporting on everything. And so now like we'll still report on it, but we'll report on it as like a bunch of Unity stuff changed. If you really want to know, ask us, but like, if not, we're going to skip it. And like, ads, like every update has something to do with ads. Same thing. People don't really care about that. It's stuff like that. So cutting back on that, on text updates, less commentary. We would try and put jokes. Cause like they're long reads. And so we try to like put jokes and make things, funny, but it just, all that stuff takes time. Like the highlight section, unfortunately, people really like that, is that instead of reading a wall of text, there would be like a little blurb of like what's changed at the top. That takes like another 10, 20 minutes on every report to like make that proper.
Right.
So cutting stuff like that. So stuff like that. So the quite frankly, the quality of our content will go down, but it's to hopefully with the goal is to not make us dread doing it as much when an update. And actually, as we're recording, I can hear our bots going off in the background. So I'll check that after.
Well, I think it's important because, I've worked in this creative space for almost 7 years now in the Pokemon Go space. And I've seen a lot of creators come and go, and I've seen a lot of creators adapt and a lot of creators fold and melt. And there's this combination of influences that could negatively impact someone. It's, you have the love of the game. So if that goes away, it's nearly impossible to create content. And then you also have this burnout thing. And when you kind of have burnout mixed with this estrangement, like you were saying, that's a very difficult thing to recover from. So you have to find a happy medium. You have to find a place where you could say, okay, I can still accomplish the core goal of getting this data out, but I'm not going to rack my brain, and I'm not going to have to like not be able to do what I need to do for the day. I'm not, it's like, oh, I got to run to the post office. I'm going to run to the post office. It's like, I'm not going to put things aside to make that header or to make that graphic. The quality of life for the creator is sometimes put on the back burner. So you have to have this kind of reshuffling of priorities. And, from one creator to the next, I find that very valuable. And I appreciate that you guys are willing to do that because I care about you. And I want you as a human to have joy in your life and be happy and not be, miserable doing something that on the surface I would think that you loved. Because I know when I'm listening to a podcast, if someone's heart isn't in it, I'm going to know immediately. It's very easy to find that lack of kind of honest transparency in someone's motive. So when those things kind of pile up, you know it. And sometimes it takes that reshuffling to say, I'd rather step back a little bit, still be able to put my heart and soul into this without having to take it to a place that's inorganic or kind of a front. And when you do that, it protects the core, it protects the content. So kudos to you and the team for taking a step back to say, like, look, we're not going anywhere, but we just have to reevaluate how we do things. And I think the entire community, the way I've seen in your Discord and on Twitter, kind of come together to show your support. Yeah, the engagement numbers might be down, but I think at its core level, the consumability of the content is still there. And that's what's important to the people and the community that follow your work. So good on you guys for kind of putting yourself ahead sometimes. And it's a very challenging thing to do. And I get like that a lot where it's just like, it's like, I got to do it. The community. It's like, I'm on 2 hours of sleep, but it's very difficult to make sense of it all. So definitely, shout out to everyone on your team for having the self-worth, the self-pride, the confidence to make a move like this. Cause I know how challenging that could be. But it's super good news and super good to hear that at its core level, all the stuff is still there. And I think that that's what's really important and kind of the moral of the story, that I wanted to make sure that with our platform, we could bring you on so the people could know, like, yeah, you're not going anywhere. The data will still be there. It's just not going to have a pretty picture associated with it, maybe, but you're still going to know. You'll still know the info.
And to be honest, even when we put up the pretty picture, like, people would ask, oh, is the move good? And then they would wait for, the analysis to and that's really all they care about. They don't care about, how much energy it generates. They care about, should I care to rate it or should I, and that information, that was never us. That's all, the great people of PokeBattler and PvPoke. Yeah. And, so like, they're still going to, nothing that we're doing is going to affect them. So all that information will still be there.
That's awesome. Well, Marty, dude, thank you so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. This was very great. And I hope a lot of people can take away a better understanding of what you do, not only from an appreciation perspective, but kind of understanding that delicate balance between the terms of service and what a leak is and what a datamine is and kind of where you fit into this. And like, even when I was talking with Adam on Lured Up Proper last week, I was just like, you don't necessarily think of a miner as a content creator. I was like, but these guys are making content, so it's important for the heart and soul to be in it. So knowing that you're taking steps to making sure that the passion and the heart and soul of what you do is retained, that's paramount to my perspective on everything that's happened and changing with your brand and all that stuff. So kudos to you. But dude, thank you so much for coming on. This was awesome. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And of course, links to everywhere you can find PokeMiners, their website, socials, the Discord, everything will be in the description. But anywhere that we could send people, where's your preference that people could check you out if they've never consumed any of your content?
Either PokeMiners.com for like our full reports and stuff. Our Twitter is probably the most real-time information. And yeah, check that. And I will be in Vegas for Hoenn Tour. So if you find me, I'll give you a pin. I actually have them this time.
Oh, nice.
I didn't have them for GoFest, but I have them for Vegas. So I am excited to finally hand those out. I have 150 of them, I think.
Awesome.
I didn't count.
Awesome.
I hope I have 150.
That's great. Well, thank you so much again. And everyone else, please check out PokemonProfessor.com for everything we have going on with the network. We had some major changes to some of our shows. And check out LuredUp.com for everything we have going on with Lured Up and the Creator Series. But Marty, once again, thank you so much. Appreciate it so much. And keep training, trainers. We'll see you next time.
Bye.